Agriculture, Finance, and Policy Committee meeting to order on January 24th, 2023. There is a quorum present, and so with that, we'll go with the approval of minutes for January 19, 2023. Representative Cha, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 19, 2023?
Approved.
So moved. Representative Cha moves the approval of the minutes for January 19, 2023. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion prevails and the minutes for the January 19th, 2023 are approved. So today, the governor rolled out his budget recommendations. And so we have the Department of Agriculture to be here today. Commissioner Thom Petersen, please make your way to the table and please identify yourself for the record and you may proceed. Thank you for being here today. Good to see you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, for the record, my name is Thom Petersen. I'm the Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and it's a pleasure to present the Governor's budget recommendations for agriculture to the committee today. I'll make some opening comments, and then Deputy Commissioner Vabel is going to walk through the budget. One thing I'd like to do, if it's possible, Madam Chair, is to introduce our division directors, who you'll be working with very closely to the committee, if that would be okay for a minute, because they're all here. And
that's okay, Commissioner Thom Petersen. So division directors, okay. Please feel free to introduce yourself to the committee.
Okay, thank you, and I'll just have them stand. I'll introduce them as we go. First is Lucy Hunt, and she is our incident command, so she works with our avian influenza and all those different things, and she's the director of that. Very important. Matt McDevitt is our Rural Finance Authority director that works on that. Catherine Simon is the director of the Food and Feed Safety division, very important. So you think of like cottage food and all of our food regulations that we do. Paul Huguenin, who you met, is the director of our Ag Marketing and Development Committee. Mark Abramson is our Plant and Protection Division, and all kinds of things, whether it's emerald ash borer, wolves, all kinds of things that his division catches. And then Julie Siss is our very important, our finance director, and good to have Julie here. And then Dr. Nikki Neeser is also here, is our dairy and meat inspection director, very important. And finally, Josh Stamper is our director of our pesticide and fertilizer division. So all very important. They do great work and they can be a resource to this committee as we go forward. So thank you for doing that, because they'll be here. I like to have our staff and the experts that know how to answer the questions be here to be able to answer questions for you. So with that, I'm just going to make a couple opening comments. So you can go to the next slide, okay? And you can see our mission there is, we've had that before on another slide, so I'm going to skip through that and go right into how we put this budget together. And so these are not all my great ideas or Deputy Commissioner Vabel's ideas. These are ideas that first we ask our agency. We're putting together our budget. What are the things that we need within our budget? So you're going to see some of that, whether it's infrastructure at the department, IT, things like that. And we ask our staff and bring those recommendations to you. The next thing we did is something we started doing last year, was asking the public what they'd like to have in our budget. And so we opened a portal, and it was open from August 1st to September 15th. We had over 300 submissions from the public. We hosted 2 public meetings on the 7th and the 8th, and then we did stakeholder meetings to bring that forward. So kind of my point is that a lot of these ideas you're going to see are things that came in from Minnesotans, and then we kind of worked on them and put them forward. And just kind of to highlight, as we look into the budget process, we really want to work with the committee. We realize this is a big number. The ag budget is less than 0.5% of the state budget. We're really pleased to see the investment of $116 million by the governor into this budget. And so as we go forward, we look at this as kind of a menu of options. Some of these items will be scalable, some aren't scalable, but we want to work with you and come up with a good budget by the end of session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Vobel to walk through more of the budget.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And for the record, my name is Andrea Vobel. I serve as Deputy Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and it is an honor to present the governor's budget to you today. We have a few items, so I tend to talk fast, so I'm going to try and slow it down since we have the full 90 minutes, but please do let me know if I need to slow it down. So the first recommendation from the governor's budget is $4 million total in fiscal year 24 and 25. This builds on the new Soil Health Financial Assistance Program that we actually just released last week. It was a pilot with $500,000 appropriation. It supports the state's Healthy Soil Management Plan through voluntary implementation of soil health management practices by awarding funds to access the specialized equipment and machinery. One of the big barriers we heard from folks who were looking to implement these practices on their land was the specialized equipment required to do so. So this is thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So this is a cost share for equipment grants. We have seen, again, since last week when we announced the pilot round, that we've had quite a bit of interest for this specialized equipment. So we're very eager to see what opportunities exist for further investment. Our Ag BMP revolving loan this is an increase to that existing program of $4 million total for fiscal year 24-25, and then $3 million per year ongoing. This seeks to increase our lending capacity for the Ag BMP loan program. We have a large interest from counties and local units of government around the state in this particular program. It supports projects and practices that help particularly our state's air and water quality, so things like erosion control, we have septic systems, and water management projects. So again, this would be to help the counties around the state do some of these projects. And again, this is a revolving loan program, so it's money that comes back to us that we then can invest in these projects in the future. The Agri Sunset Extension. So you heard from the wonderful Paul Hugen and Ashley Bress last week about the Agri program. Again, that stands for the Agricultural Growth, Research, and Innovation Program. That is about $17.5 million per year, and we are asking to extend this sunset for another 10 years. Just as a reminder, it is the fiscal tails of the old ethanol producer payments. The agency, along with all of members of the agricultural community in the state, have done enormous work and impact for our agricultural producers with this program. We have, I think, up to 14 different programs that we run out of this, including our value-added business grants, our livestock investment grants, our farm to school, urban ag, biofuels, bioincentive program, a whole host of things that come out of this. So we really are hoping to extend this another 10 years. And as mentioned last week, we will have a report coming out February 1st that really deep dives into all of the wonderful impact and investment that return on investment we've gotten from these dollars. Biofuels infrastructure grants. The governor is requesting $1.5 million per year ongoing for the Agri Biofuels Infrastructure Financial Assistance Program. This is on top of a $3 million appropriation existing within the Agri Fund. These grants help service stations upgrade their equipment, specifically things like fuel dispensers, underground storage tanks, and associated equipment to allow them to offer higher blends of ethanol for sale at the pump. They are made to service stations in Minnesota that are independently owned or belong to chains of 10 stations or less. It's really to get to those folks who want to make these investments but may not have the means to do so, to offer more consumer choice around the state.
Excuse me, Commissioner. Members, I just want to note that you have two presentations, but it's best to follow on the bigger handouts. That will be the correct handout to follow along with. Thank you, Commissioners.
The next recommendation is $250,000 per year ongoing for agri meat processing grants. This proposal seeks to expand the agri appropriation by increasing the funding available specifically for grants to meat, poultry, egg, and milk processors. The requests that we received for the fiscal year 22 funding far exceeded what we had eligible or set aside for this issue. So we want to make sure that we have some additional funding invested in the meat processing infrastructure around the state. The beginning farmer equipment grants, and I will, this is connected to the next 3 slides related to the Emerging Farmers Office, which I'll get into. The plan is for this to be run out of the Emerging Farmers Office. The governor's asking for $200,000 per year ongoing to create a new program specifically for new and emerging farmers to increase their market access and sales. We heard from the Emerging Farmers Working Group through the portal and other stakeholder and public meetings that the department needed to design a grant program specifically for emerging farmers. One of the things that this one would highlight is a smaller a smaller cost match from those who are applying for these grants. So again, we would also work with the Emerging Farmer Working Group and others to develop this and flesh this program out a little bit more. But again, our hope is that this would be run out of the Emerging Farmers Office. Also, to run out of the Emerging Farmers Office is services to immigrant and BIPOC producers and businesses. The governor's requesting $250,000 per year ongoing for this item. This seeks to support organizations that will provide culturally appropriate services to immigrant and BIPOC ag producers and food system related businesses. We did do some investments of this nature with some CARES Act dollars, and it was really well received. We worked with organizations like the Young American Farmers Association, the Latino Economic Development Council, the MEDA, the Metropolitan Economic Development Association, as well as a number of regional initiative foundations. So we know the need is out there, and again, this would be run out of the Emerging Farmers Office. So, the Emerging Farmers Office. We're looking to expand the EFO, as we call it. This was established thanks to all of you with some initial seed money a year or two ago to establish the office. We have a fantastic person who is our outreach and engagement coordinator who works on all things emerging farmers. Her name is Lillian Otieno, and she is wonderful, but she is also one person, and we have a lot of demand for services from the MDA. So what we're hoping to do is expand the office with $700,000 in fiscal year 24-25, and then $625,000 per year ongoing. This would support additional staff to provide services for emerging farmers throughout the state, specifically in the areas of, again, grants management. We don't have the infrastructure within the office to offer grants management, but of course, we're hoping with additional appropriations as the two that I just mentioned, that there will be need for that. Oversight, coordination, communication, translation services, technical support, and tribal consultations. Again, this would be in addition to the existing position we have within the office right now, which is our outreach and engagement coordinator. This proposal also includes the elimination of the sunset for the Emerging Farmers Working Group. That was one we heard also from the Emerging Farmers Working Group, as well as through the portal in our public meetings, that they've been a really invaluable resource for us over the time that we've had them, and we want to continue their work long into the future. So again, we wanted to eliminate the sunset set in statute for that group. Minnesota Grown. A number of you are familiar with the Minnesota Grown program. It is our branded program we have. It's been around for 35 years. Since 1987 is the first time we got a state appropriation for this program. It was designed to help promote Minnesota products and Minnesota producers. Typically and historically, it's been for specialty crop growers, but over time, we have seen a large influx of meat and poultry producers. We have over 450 members now, and we have not had an increase to this program in over 10 years. So we are seeking an additional $75,000 per year. This would be, all of the new activities would be done with existing program staffing levels, and will allow the agency to invest in advertising, social media promotion, public relations, and then significantly expand the amazing content we have on the Minnesota Grown website. I encourage you to check that out if you're ever looking for a place to support your local farmer. Farm safety, health, and wellness grants. The governor's requesting $250,000 per year ongoing for this effort. It seeks to support farm safety outreach and equipment cost share payments to farmers. Many of you might be familiar with the ROPS program or the rollover protective structures, as well as our grain bin safety cost share programs. As the commissioners mentioned, back in 2019, we had tragically 11 people die in grain bin deaths. So the cost share program has been significantly helpful since then, and we know that there's more of a demand and funding is needed to do that. It also would include a pass-through grant to the Minnesota FFA Foundation to engage FFA chapters in creating education, training, and outreach projects related to stress and mental health in their communities. The Ag Emergency Account. The governor's requesting $1.5 million one-time funding to replenish the MDA's Ag Emergency Account. The Ag Emergency Account was created in 2016 after the 2015 high-path avian influenza outbreak. Many of you were around and integral in getting that passed, and we're so grateful. It's been just an absolute need for the response that we've had over particularly this last year in terms of preparing for the next outbreak and response, not just with high-path avian influenza, which again, we expect another outbreak here this spring, but also the looming threat of African swine fever. Luckily, we've been able to get funds appropriated quickly from the legislature in the past for response activities, but we want to ensure that we have ample funding in case we are not in session and have to respond quickly. The Good Acre Leaf Program. The governor requests $100,000 per year ongoing for the Good Acres Local Emergency Assistance Farmer Fund, or LEAF. This program provides underserved farmers with new market channels by paying market rate prices for their produce, and then all of which then is donated to hunger relief organizations across Minnesota. This program was created under COVID in 2020, really to make sure that we could provide market access for those who had lost them, particularly for emerging farmers, but then also connect them with the huge need in the hunger community for these fresh fruits and vegetables and culturally appropriate food. So we've seen a huge return on investment with those funds. We can also leverage a lot of private dollars, or the Good Acre can, and so the governor felt like it was important to have a state appropriation ongoing to support these efforts. The governor requests over $8 million in fiscal year 24 and 25 and $9.2 million in fiscal year 26 and 27. This is to maintain MDA's current service levels, or otherwise known as an operating adjustment. We want to make sure that MDA can continue to deliver its current services as cost pressures increase, as we are all experiencing and we're seeing throughout Minnesota. Agency operating budgets cover items like employee compensation growth, IT service rates, which continue to rise, vendor contract increases, interagency service contracts, and laboratory preventative maintenance contracts. Without the maintenance service levels or the operating adjustment, we know we will be unable to offer the current level of service that Minnesotans expect and we would like to provide. MDA IT modernization. The legislature did appropriate $750,000 last year for this effort, and we are so grateful for the foundation that has laid. The governor's requesting $2.4 million in fiscal year 24 and 25, as well as a fee authorization for fiscal year 24 and ongoing. This money would support efforts to replace MDA's old and outdated IT systems. We have several systems that we've used for several years related to our inspection and compliance activities, but they are becoming outdated and I would say less than user-friendly. So by moving to modern technologies, the department could improve both customer self-service options and streamline staff work to provide better customer service. We also know that the folks that we work with are expecting a lot more to be online and for us to be a lot more modernized in the way that we issue licenses, inspections, and compliance. Again, the fee authorization would allow a long-term funding stability for these efforts, as we know they will take many years. And for anyone who's done an IT project, you are well aware that sometimes it takes a little while to get some of these things over the finish line. The Rural Finance Authority, you heard about this from Mr. McDevitt last week. The governor is requesting $40 million in bond authority to purchase bonds for the purpose of funding RFA bond loans. As you heard last week, we are projected to exhaust current available funds by October of this year. So of course we want to get out ahead of it and make sure we have the funds well in advance of October. There are 5 programs out of the Rural Finance Authority that are geo-bonded, and one of them is the beginning farmer loan. And what you heard from Matt is that is by far the most well-utilized program out of the RFA. So again, we want to make sure we've got the ample funds to provide for those requests as they come in. Still speaking to RFA and the capacity increase, the governor's requesting $150,000 per year ongoing. This is to add additional resources that will reduce bottlenecks in processing and service times. As you heard, the RFA services 13 loans. We also have the beginning farmer tax credit run out of the RFA, which is another 1,100 transactions each year, as well as the new down payment assistance program is run out of the RFA. So as you can tell, that's a lot of work with the existing level of staffing that we've had for several years. They have worked very, very hard to stay on top and provide the service that they want to provide and that they expect to provide. But we are seeing also that our loan portfolio that we service has tripled over the years. So it's necessary that we get some additional staffing capacity to meet the demand. We do have some temporary funding that we've used to hire a senior loan officer. However, we do need long-term funding to ensure that person can stay on and that we've got the capacity to run the program the way we see fit. The meat processing liaison request is $150,000 per year ongoing. Important to note is $75,000 of this is general fund and would leverage $75,000 in federal funds. This came in through the portal, through several conversations, and actually I know this was a conversation we had last year as well. So this proposal seeks to support a meat processing navigator position at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. They would assist any new and prospective meat processing plants to navigate the very complicated food safety regulatory requirements for becoming a meat processor. This person would also help them navigate any funding or grant potential that might exist out in the state and nationally, work through just local processor issues, things like zoning, plumbing, just basic infrastructure issues. We have amazing staff that have spent a lot of time working with people who are really interested in getting to meat processing. We want people interested. We really want to build out the meat processing ecosystem and capacity throughout the state. But we want to make sure that they've got time to actually do their other work of inspecting and ensuring the safe food supply. So we're hoping that this position would be really helpful in navigating and helping those who are interested, but then also help alleviate some of the burden on our staff. Food licensing modernization, the governor requests $3,827,000 in fiscal year '24. This is really just a one-time impact to the general fund in fiscal year '24. The governor seeks to redirect non-dedicated food handler license and inspection fee revenue that currently goes to the general fund. We'd like to create a new ag fund account and revert or redirect those funds into the ag fund. This allows our program to have a fund balance that ensures that we are able to address some short-term salaries issues that have arose, and then creates an overall long-term funding stability for the program, which we've sought for several years in a row. A grain indemnity fund. The governor requests $5 million in one-time spending for fiscal year '24. It seeks to create and establish a grain indemnity fund at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. The indemnity fund will protect producers who have unpaid grain sales when grain buyers or warehouses become financially insolvent. Several of you have heard about the many insolvencies the state has experienced over the last couple of years, and I've heard directly from farmers that have been tragically impacted by the economic impact that this has had on them. We are requesting a one-time investment from the state to establish the fund, and then it will be replaced through fees associated either with sales of grain or in lieu of current bonding costs. Again, we can dive into this a little bit more, but there are some mechanisms for it to blink on and off depending upon the need. And we have some other initiatives as part of this ask that reflects what we've learned from a number of other states around us that have indemnity funds. We are one of the few in the Midwest that do not have one. Agri-value-added entrepreneurial support. The governor is requesting $250,000 per year ongoing to expand our current agri-value-added program. This would seek to focus on key areas of entrepreneurial support. Many of you maybe have heard from small companies around the state that are looking for co-packing capacity, cold storage, and commercial kitchen space, which is lacking around the state. We also would ask for additional value-added grants out of this pot and expand investment in the New Markets Cost Share Program, specifically focusing on food safety and environmental sustainability. You probably hear a lot about HACCP plans and developing HACCP plans. We hope to assist some of those new and up-and-coming companies as they seek to grow. The bioincentive program, looking for a funding increase. The governor has asked for $5 million in fiscal year '24 and '25, and $10 million in fiscal year '26 and '27. For many of you who may know, the bioincentive program was created several years ago to spur private investment to really build up pilot scale things like advanced biofuels, renewable chemicals, and biomass thermal energy to really make those into commercial scale. We have a number of claimants enrolled in the program for 100% of payments. However, we are unable to fulfill all of those payments with the current amount of money appropriated within Agri. So this would add on to that existing appropriation to really reduce the shortfall that we see in this program. Grants for farmers market hubs. This also came in through our portal, and we also heard from stakeholders that so the governor is asking for $700,000 in fiscal year 24 and 25. This seeks to establish and administer a competitive grant program for farmers market hubs in Minnesota. It's to provide funding to start, sustain, and grow aggregation efforts specifically at farmers markets. This builds on an effort that was started with a USDA specialty block crop grant by Renewing the Countryside, the University of Minnesota, as well as the Minnesota Farmers Market Association. They've been able to start up, I think, 11 different aggregation efforts at farmers market farmers market hubs. But we know that there's a greater need out there, and the state can step in and help build that out. An increase to the Second Harvest Heartland milk allocation. The governor is requesting $250,000 per year ongoing for this effort. It supplements an existing grant to Second Harvest Heartland to purchase milk, protein, and surplus ag items, primarily fruit and vegetables. These funds would be specifically used for milk purchases. There was an additional prior appropriation for $600,000 to Second Harvest specifically for milk purchases. They expected that to last 6 months, and it's only expected to last 4. That's due to a number of things, but certainly food prices and also just the demand they're hearing at their food shelves. So this would look to help supplement that and reduce that shortfall. Expanded international trade support. The governor is requesting $150,000 per year ongoing. This would support a full-time international trade representative based at the department. We have one international trade rep right now named Jeff Phillips. He does fantastic, fabulous work, but we know that there's a lot more we can be doing on the global scale. A number of states around us have sometimes 4 or 5 staff related or dedicated to international trade, and so we want to make sure Minnesota stays competitive, particularly in those emerging markets, but also those established markets that we've had for several years. Funding would also go for trade missions and reverse trade missions or other international trade activities, such as in-market reps like we have in Taiwan. County fair premium increase. The governor is requesting $200,000 per year ongoing. This increases the aid for eligible county and district ag societies and associations, or county fairs. It will increase the existing base appropriation they have, which is $674,000. This ensures that we can provide higher payments to each county that applies for these premium assistance grants. And we know that the need is out there. So this is an appropriation the governor is asked to fulfill that need. Noxious weed grants. The governor is requesting $400,000 per year ongoing for noxious weed grants. These are to local units of government in tribal nations for noxious weed detection, control, and management, things like Palmer amaranth, wild parsnip, poison hemlock, and others. We've had these in the past, and they've been successful. I think we just announced that we had a little bit of money left from the last round, and we're hoping to get that out to counties around the state. They've been they've proven to be an effective way for MDA to provide coordination of efforts while enabling the needed on-the-ground management for particular county ag inspectors who are working hard around the state to manage the many noxious weeds on our list. The governor's requesting $150,000 per year ongoing for a climate implementation coordinator. This is a new position at the MDA. We focused on coordinating climate activities across MDA divisions to start with. We have several employees around the division who work on climate-related activities, but they cross divisions, they cross units, and they have kind of little pieces of each thing. So we really want to make sure we're coordinating agency-wide, but then also, again, enterprise-wide with all of our sister agencies at PCA, DNR, Bowser, Commerce, and others, again, to really get at those climate action framework goals, particularly around natural and working lands. We'd also want this person to develop strategic partnerships with outside organizations and then coordinate all the federal funding opportunities related to climate that we've seen really be an uptick over the last few years from USDA. There's been a lot of opportunities. We want to make sure we're capitalizing on those and working, again, hand in hand with our sister agencies. The governor's requesting $800,000 in fiscal year 24-25 for pass-through grants to ag organizations. These are a long-time legacy pass-through grants that have gone to these organizations They are one-time funding, again, for pass-through. We receive the dollars and then allocate it out directly to those organizations. For this one, we are talking Center for Rural Policy and Development, Northern Crops Institute, Minnesota Turf Seed Council, Minnesota State Poultry Association, Minnesota State Horticultural Society, and I missed one in here, Green Seam, as well as Minnesota Livestock Breeders Association. The governor's requesting $100,000 per year ongoing to funding for a pollinator research account. This was established a few years ago, but funding has not been available, so the governor would like to make sure funding is available in that account. This is funding that would go directly to the University of Minnesota in consultation with the MDA, but again, pass through to the University of Minnesota. These dollars would be used to fund research and outreach activities focused on improving pollinator habitat and pest management practices that reduce the effects of pesticides on pollinators while retaining the economic strength of Minnesota's agriculture. The governor's requesting an increase to our fertilizer tonnage fee. This is not an impact to the general fund, but we are asking for an increase to a fee. We expect that it will be generating about $750,000 per year that would go into our dedicated fund. It's a 25-cent per ton increase to the fertilizer tonnage fee. Increased revenue that would be generated for this would allow MDA to continue current support on inspection and permitting services that we provide right now, conduct nitrogen point source evaluations and investigations. We've been asked to do that through the Groundwater Protection Act and have had no money allocated to that activity, and then sample consumer fertilizer products. Legalizing adult use cannabis, it's something you might have been hearing about over your time here at the legislature. There will be some dollars that the MDA will need to implement this should it pass. $822,000 in fiscal year 24-25, and then another $676,000 in fiscal year 26-27. It will cover the costs MDA expects to incur related to the legalization. We know as we set up an Office of Cannabis Management, there will be several activities that MDA will need to help stand up. This includes current responsibilities we have for licensing, inspection, enforcement, surveillance, and grants assistance, particularly related to our industrial hemp program and our food program. We also have our bonding request that you might remember from last year. This is $457,384 in GO bonds and $73,000 in cash. This is to renovate the MDA potato inspection facility that's located in East Grand Forks. If you were on the bonding tour last year, you might have visited it. It's used primarily for potato-related services, including seed potato certification, lab testing for pathogens, potato cyst nematode surveys, USDA shipping point inspections, amongst other things. It is a state asset, so we want to make sure we take care of it and do the necessary renovations, as it has not gotten some care in quite a while. We have several budget neutral changes. So again, these are things that we're looking to change and are part of our budget bill and finance bill, but do not have any impact to the general fund. The pet food registration streamlining, so as it's currently written in law right now, for pet food distributors, they have to annually register with MDA for all of their products, and they have to do it annually. We see a lot of the same thing year after year. It starts to become quite burdensome for both the distributors as well as the Department of Ag to have to account for all of that and administer those labels. So we are looking to change it so that folks have to provide that to the MDA with a 5-day notice if we should ask. Plan review fee modernization. Again, I will try and do this justice. Thank goodness we have Catherine and Jeff here to explain if you have further questions. But this is looking to create an additional category within our plan review to account for smaller facilities. It also allows that if we're relooking at any remodeling for a facility, that we're looking at the actual space that they're remodeling, not the full facility. Expanded eligibility for farm to school. This one came in through the portal and several conversations. As of right now, the Agri Farm to School grants are only available to schools. So we want to expand eligibility to early care childhood centers. We know that there's a need there, and we want to, of course, provide additional markets for farmers and provide healthy foods for as young as we can get them. The OSB Production Incentive Amendment, there's a program that was passed a few years ago called the Oriented Strand Board Incentive Program. There currently isn't any money in that, but it was a language that was passed in our bill. We're just asking for an administrative percentage should any money be allocated. As we know, with the bioincentive program, there is quite a bit of administrative work that goes along with these types of programs, so we want to ensure we have that in case money is allocated. Expanding option for agri-sustainable ag demonstration grants. This is, again, a really well thought of and historical program within agri. This is a slight change to allow for applicants to provide labor and then use of their own equipment as in-kind match rather than a reimbursement, because those things are not currently eligible for reimbursement. So this would just allow them to use that as an in-kind match. Modify the bee kill compensation fund. Again, thank goodness Mr. Stamper is here to explain if there's further questions. One thing here is we are looking to allow for commercial beekeepers and once there's a responsible party identified, to be able to receive compensation. I'm probably not explaining that right, but I will get back to you on that. Basically, we want to be able to decrease the amount of time it takes to investigate and get compensation out to those who have experienced bee kills. Updated fee structure for nursery certificates. This is where we're looking to just slightly update the fee structure we have and licensing structure we have for nursery certificates. The way the nursery stock industry is set, our fee structure does not reflect how it's actually used in practice, so we're just looking to slightly update that to match what's going on out in the marketplace. The RFA down payment assistance grant extension, the new down payment assistance program, we just started that this year. This is our first round. We're learning a lot. One of the things that we identified was that with the first $500,000 that's been allocated to this program, it does go back to the general fund if we're not able to have it encumbered by the end of the fiscal year. What we fear may happen is that if land deals fall through, or if we allocate $15,000 to somebody and they're not able to spend it within that time, we want to have carryover authority to ensure that that money can stay within the department and be well reutilized for those who could use that down payment assistance in the future. And then finally, the clarifying federal fund authority for chronic wasting disease. This is a technical thing, just to there's some language in our bill that, or I'm sorry, in our statutes that are somewhat duplicative. And just clarifies that, again, we are able to receive dollars from the federal government to for chronic wasting disease efforts. This is really difficult to see. This is just a quick snapshot of all the general fund increases that the governor is proposing. And again, we'll get this out to you, but it's just I wanted you to have it on hand so you could quickly look at it if you needed it. But overall, for the general fund summary in new dollars, the governor is requesting $45.5 additional dollars to the ag budget in 24-25, and then $71,078,000 in 26-27, which equates between those two biennia $116.5 million in spending for the agriculture budget. There's also just two quick things as well. Two issues that I know have come up in this committee in the past. One is market bucks. It's a really important program that the Department of Ag is extremely supportive of. We do know that there is a $100,000 increase recommendation from the governor in the humanities budget for the market bucks program. So we were happy to see that, as well as the Ag to School credit, which we will see in the revenue budget. And with that, I turn it back over to you or Commissioner if you have anything else you want to add.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner and Commissioner Petersen, for your presentation. I know it's not easy to gather input from all across the state and to process that and organize that into a digestible format for us members to get through it. So thank you so much for doing all of that for us. And so with that, I will leave it for questions. I can start off with my first question with the Emerging Farmers Office expansion. I just wanted if you can elaborate what sort of services emerging farmers are asking, what are you hoping to do with the additional staffing, what that could look like.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. So we are hearing a lot of from emerging farmers all around the state. Some of the issues that they're coming in to us with is Things like navigating just the state in general, understanding what opportunities exist, not only within the Department of Agriculture, which we have so many services across a number of divisions. So again, navigating just our own agency, but then a lot of the other sister agencies. So opportunities that might exist with DNR, PCA, or even maybe some licensing or compliance issues that they might be encountering with other agencies. We want to make sure that we can provide that service to help them work directly with agencies enterprise-wide. Certainly just translation services or technical services, technical assistance services. A lot of times they're not sure where to go. They might know what they might need, but they're not sure who to talk to or where to go. There's also a lot of opportunities with things like farm business management that they might not have connections with. There's also, if they're looking for people that they want to maybe partner with, or if they're looking for land opportunities, trying to navigate where to find available land or how to access funding. Also with our federal partners at FSA and NRCS and others. So it's a lot of need of, they kind of feel like MDA is where they can go to get help to figure out where to go next and really understand how to be successful. Also market access if they want to connect with aggregators like the Good Acre or fellow farmers if they want to talk to other folks to get just sort of mentorships or understand how to again navigate just the very complicated system we have at the state and the federal government.
All right, thank you. And then I have one more question, just more of a general funding question. As you all know, we do have a rather large surplus, but a lot of that is one-time funding. And I do see a lot of ongoing funding here. So wanted to see if, are there, of these menu items, which ones do you all think we can consider in terms of scaling it down to one time? And then what are some of the ones that you want to highlight that we should consider as ongoing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it's a great question as we look, or Madam Chair, as we look through this and everything, and I'd mentioned that earlier. So like soil health grants is a great example. We had that last year. Again, we had the same portal last year. I think we actually asked for more money last year. We might have, I don't know if we asked for 5 million. We ended up with $500,000, but that jump-started that program. So we ended up with 1/10 of what we originally had asked for. I hope we get more, but because we can see the need. Actually, as Deputy Commissioner Vobel said, we opened that on last week, and we have 500,000. We're almost well over 300,000 in requests in less than a week on that grant. But that's a good one that is example to what's scalable. The meat processing liaison, actually, I think Representative Nelson had that as a bill last year. That wouldn't be scalable. That's a position we'd have to hire. The RFA, the banker, adding that is not scalable. That's a position that we'd be adding. But like meat processing, biofuel and infrastructure grants, the bioincentive is scalable. Agri is always scalable. We like to see the high dollar amount in there, is helpful. The emerging farmers office expansion, for example, we may not get, all of that, just to be honest, as we're negotiating. That's kind of what we'd like. But we can look and see, that things, most of these though are scalable, and as we get in there. And we look forward to working with you and the committee on that as we did last year too, to, we were able to get some of those things in, like the down payment assistance. We had wanted a lot more money for that, but again, we ended up with 500,000 for last year and 750 for this year. So work with the committee and with the target. We'll have to see what the forecast is in the end of the month or February and kind of go from there. But glad to visit with you on those as we look at it.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your overview presentation. I have a clarifying question around the second harvest milk allocation item. Second harvest Heartland does not service all of our food shelves across the state. So is there another program, or I would just love more information. For example, my communities don't get served by Second Harvest, but instead we go through Channel 1. So any clarification about that would be appreciated.
Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Representative Purcell. I know that all of our allocations go directly to Second Harvest. I'm not aware of any with Channel 1, but I'll double check with our staff just to clarify on that. But I think you're correct that it does not service Channel 1 as of right now.
Representative Purcell? Thanks. Okay. Representative Harder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for their presentation. I have a couple of questions that I need some help with. So on page 11, where it's the Emergency Farmers Office expansion, it mentioned at the bottom, the elimination of the sunset. Can you please tell me, when was that sunset supposed to be? And do you have any data on the use of this program?
Deputy Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative Harder. Yes, so the Emerging Farmers Working Group is set to sunset in 2025. So the reason we're asking for it now is just to anticipate that sunset. We can certainly follow up with you on we do some tracking on just number of calls, and again, it was just started up, so we're still kind of working on, at least for the office, and the one staff person we have of managing all the information and requests that come in. But we can certainly get back to you on the Emerging Farmers Working Group itself in terms of the number of meetings we've had, the things that they've discussed, and what they've done to help influence some of the programs we have at the department.
Representative Harder?
Thank you. I have another question, and that has to go with on page 33, and it has to do with these fees. So you want to increase a fee by 25 cents. Can you tell me what is the fee right now?
Deputy Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative Harder, thank you so much. I am just going to ask for Division Director, Mr. Josh Stamper. I'm pretty sure I know, but I don't want to speak incorrectly, so I'm going to get him the expert to come up.
Thank you, Director Josh. Please identify yourself before the committee and then proceed.
Madam Chair, thank you. Joshua Stamper, I'm the Division Director for the Pesticide and Fertilizer Management Division in the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Currently, the inspection fee for fertilizer is 39 cents per ton.
Representative Harder?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have one more question, I believe. Okay, so and this fee is transferred down to the person that uses the fertilizer, which would be myself as a farmer, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The fee is collected by the retailer that is handling the transaction and the purchase of fertilizer.
Representative Harder?
One more question. Thank you for that. Just a reminder, it can be a struggle to be a farmer, and it is right now with the uncertain times and the increase of costs. And this is just one more burden that you're going to be adding on to farmers that we have to somehow bear. Just keep that in mind when you're requesting that. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Petersen?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Representative Harder, we take that very seriously. I look at that and I see like, what is the cost going to be? We can also get that to you, that what it would be to an average farmer. We have those dollars that we can break that down, whether it's $20 a year or and then what the services that we're going to be able to provide. This also, to me, it's a hard decision to make, as I don't take that lightly. But it's also a structural piece for the agencies so that we can deliver. And as we're pointed out, this has been something that we've been asked to do and have not been able to follow through on. It'll let us get to some of those points that we need to do. So thank you.
Representative Harder?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Burkle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the presentation. I'm curious if Commissioner Petersen or maybe Deputy Commissioner Vogel could answer on the ag emergency accounts, page 14, where that account balance is now and how things kind of ended last year during the high path outbreak. Where are we sitting today?
Commissioner Petersen? Deputy Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative Burkle, thank you so much. We do have Lucy Hunt, who is the Director of our Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response, who can speak to that.
Thank you. Please identify yourself before the committee. You may proceed.
Hello, Lucia Hunt, Director of the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response for the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I missed the question. I can't hear the question.
Sorry. It's how much is left on the margin?
Representative Burkle, you can repeat the question too.
I have to look this up.
Yeah, Representative Burkle, so we'll get you the exact breakdown. It's actually very exact, and part of that is because we have our cooperative agreement with the USDA. So we'll get you a breakdown, but we believe it's about $2.4 million that are left.
And if I would, and maybe you could say like some of the dollars that we've used that for, Lucy, and just kind of go into. So we did get a $1 million appropriation last year, Madam Chair and Representative Burkle, right before the Easter break. Thank you for doing that, because we had drawn down to a couple $100,000, and we were worried with every legislators going into the break, and we were having a lot of cases at that point. And so we got the $1 million, and then we asked for another $3 million a couple weeks later when we finished out the budget. So it gave us a total of $4 million. And I believe we're about $2.5 million, but I also just wanted to, some of that money gets reimbursed. It's helpful for us to have that. Example, Ms. Hunt was able to buy like foam ahead where we could get into the fall, and it was a good idea, but we have that opportunity sometimes that other states don't have by having this fund. And then if you want to share like some of the things that we've spent the money on.
Yes, Madam Chair and membership, we're very grateful for the past support that you've given our team with ag emergencies. We have been able to make very quick responses thanks to your generosity in the past. And we've been able to, back in 2020 with our swine disruption work, in 2022 with our HPAI response, we've been able to make great strides very quickly thanks to the ag emergency account. As the Commissioner mentioned, we've been able to purchase critical supplies for our responses, as foam. Foam is used for the depopulation of turkeys, very important for the basis of our response here for high-path avian influenza. We've been able to pay staff out of that amount. A lot of our staff that we use are dedicated staff to other programs, and we're able to use this money to fulfill the staff needs for a response. Those are quite high sometimes. Overtime is generally reimbursed by the federal government. So we're able to do that. We're able to get contractors online very quickly, depopulation contractors. We have a state contract. We utilize those crews for depopulation activities. A lot of our field activities get completed by contractors, for everything from porta potties to water trucks delivered to these farms to take care of infected flocks. We're also able to use these funds for lab supplies. As you can imagine, there's a lot of sampling going on for animal disease. We're able to replenish supplies for our partners at the university labs, at the Minnesota Poultry Testing Lab. And also another expense that we're able to use this for is our remote incident command posts. When we are working in a geographic area that's very dense with turkeys, we will use facilities that are, we've used county facilities and private facilities to house our staff. We've got federal teams that do come in to help us out, that we commingle with our state teams, and we're able to make those decisions very quickly and get our response off the ground immediately.
Representative Burkle?
Thank you, Chair Banning, and thanks for that. I know that these funds, there's a lot of intermingling of USDA funds, but I do appreciate the time and response from the Department of Ag. One more question, Chair Banning. There was no comment made, or there was nothing formal anyway about wolf and elk depredation. I'm assuming those funds will stay the same, or what's your thought process as far as wolf and elk depredation money?
Director Hunt?
Okay, Madam Chair and Representative Burkle, thank you. That's no change is what we have right now. We have had some discussion. Might be helpful to have like a 15-minute overview on the wolf and elk fund. It's the elk is really, it's a unique thing. It's the elk herds are really situated in Representative Burkle's district. They do damage to the farms. We do pay the farmers compensation. The wolf range touches, counties kind of north of 94, east 23, Representative Nelson's area is kind of a hot zone, and And of course, Representative Burkle is also a hot zone area. So we do pay compensation for wolf kills. Wolf kills last couple of years, we do have Mark Abramson here who administers the account, and he could tell you the balances or things like that. The wolf claims have gone down, but the elk claims have gone way up. And so we may want to continue to look at that or have conversations with you. I think you have a bill on that as we go forward. We also have been able to secure funds. Representative Poston actually had a bill a few years ago that helped us jumpstart a cost share program for trying to keep wolves away from the livestock. And that's, I think, been successful, but it's allowed us to leverage some of our federal funds, and we intermingle that to help pay for some of the wolf claims. So right now, we're okay and not asking for more dollars, but I think it might be helpful to have a discussion sometime in the committee.
Representative Burkle?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. I think for me, as I have one quick question. While we're still on the ag emergency account, during my time committee, we responded to many incidents. Heavy snowstorm, the barn collapses, the drought relief was a recent one. Commissioner, do you see the ag emergency account as a potential area that we can use the account to address those as we see more climate weather risks in greater Minnesota or all across the state?
Madam Chair, in two different things here. We use the ag emergency account primarily for animal disease. And so we've used that for avian influenza and then also looking at preparing for African swine fever. Early on, many years ago, maybe Representative Anderson was here, we had an outbreak of bovine tuberculosis up actually in Representative Burkle's area where, those type of things we use that account for. We do within the RFA, though, have the disaster recovery loan program. And that we have used, and the legislature did make changes a couple of years ago to allow us to respond quickly to disasters. And so we've been able to, we did barn collapses in 2019. I think we did almost 20 loans. Might have to look at that this year. Maybe Mr. McDevitt mentioned it in committee. I just had another farm in my area in Pine County lost a barn last night. And so we're going to look at that at our RFA meeting in February and authorize those loans. That's a 0% loan for barn collapses. We also did that for the windstorms we had last year in western Minnesota. We did it for COVID, where farmers were just having a hard time. We released it for drought. In 2021, we did a lot of loans for hay and then avian influenza. I don't know that we've done any for avian influenza. A lot of times, when the disaster is declared, we can either use a federal disaster declaration or the way I have been working it with what the committee provided us was I convene the Rural Finance Authority and they vote to authorize the disaster. So we would look at we have that on the agenda for the February meeting to look at the barn collapses. We also, those are kind of the way the accounts work and everything. But great question.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a couple of questions. Further comment on the questions raised by Representative Harder. And just to clarify, we've tried to beat back that fund every year for a while, and it's back again. So this would not go to the cleanup fund, but the actual research fund for fertilizer. Is that correct?
Deputy Commissioner.
I see Josh is going to come up here. I will, Madam Chair and Representative Anderson, from what I understand, and he can clarify for me, but this would be for actual managing and implementation of the fertilizer inspection services and things of that nature.
Director.
Just to clarify, the ACRA fund is the research piece of it. This is for the actual, or you might have been thinking of AFRA. Well, I'll just let Josh go.
Yeah, you're
Director Josh.
Now we're thoroughly confused.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, to be clear, our fee increase request is primarily focused on fertilizer inspection. Quite frankly, our time to get around to inspect facilities that store and handle and distribute fertilizer is pretty extended. And part of the challenge with that is also the permitting. These facilities have gotten extremely large. There's been an immense amount of consolidation within this industry in the last 30 years. And as these facilities grow and expand, the permitting requirements are commensurate with that size. It's also, part of this is looking at at point source investigations. As we've begun to address some of the groundwater contamination across the state in Minnesota, we need to make sure that regulations that are associated with the application of fertilizer to agricultural fields, that groundwater contamination is not actually coming from point sources, meaning the facilities that store and handle fertilizer are not contributing to groundwater contamination, that farmers would be expected to change practices and try to protect groundwater for the rest of the citizens of Minnesota.
Representative Anderson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Harder, would you agree that inspecting anhydrous fertilizer locations and equipment has been a big part of your job of inspecting fertilizer locations?
Director Josh.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, anhydrous ammonia is a challenge for many growers. It represents the most dangerous form. When we think about acute poisonings, anhydrous is, the most dangerous agricultural chemical that we deal with simply because of the form that it's in there. We have really struggled to, there has been consolidation within the industry. There are more and more dealerships that are moving away from anhydrous, namely because a lot of their growers aren't necessarily interested in it. But it's also been a challenge for us to get out and inspect and make sure that there's the appropriate safeguards in place to protect the public around these facilities. Quite frankly, when an anhydrous tank goes, there's not good news for anyone.
Commissioner Petersen.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, and that is, Madam Chair and Representative Anderson, something, as commissioner, I think our staff does a great job getting to those, but, we do have accidents. We get those, calls at all times of the day, and they are, not always good when those happen. And so I think it is really important. That's why I've tried to, as we look at the budget, last thing I want to do is put fees in our budget. But what we want to do to you or to the committee is have an honest discussion about what the cost is and how we could pay for it. We can put general fund dollars in, or the committee can decide, or we could look at that. This is how we looked at, potentially doing this. And again, over the years, and I know how it goes and everything, but, and again, I try to look at it as, okay, I always give it I call it my Al Tyke as my neighbor, and I always say, what's it going to cost Al, and how mad is he going to be at me by raising this? And so we look at it, it's going to be $12 a year or whatever, but he's going to know that he's getting more timely inspections. He's going to be getting, a safer product and things like that. And so it's just a discussion that we want to have with the committee on this. So.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The point I was going to try to make is that with more and more elevators and fertilizer plants dropping anhydrous, you would have fewer to inspect, which maybe would be less of a cost to you, so you maybe wouldn't have to raise the fee, is what I was going to suggest.
Director Josh.
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, as we move away from anhydrous ammonia, we will move towards urea. Urea is stored on concrete pads at every facility within the state. And anyone who has lived in Minnesota for an extended period of time knows that there's two types of concrete in Minnesota, that has cracked and that is going to crack, which goes back around to our investigation of point sources, is that the majority of the cleanups that we do within this state are associated with dry fertilizer facilities where we have urea, that goes into a liquid form, will move into the ground, and then at some point in time, we will have to go in and clean those up through our ACRA program, our Ag Chemical Response and Reimbursement Account.
Okay.
So it's not quite that simple. As we move away from one chemical, we're going to go into another, and it represents some other challenges.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you. And then one comment also on the Emerging Farmer Working Group. It's new, and usually your department is good at giving us reports on how things have gone, and we haven't gotten one yet, so I would suggest some kind of a report before we discuss eliminating the sunset on any department or commission that you work with.
Commissioner Petersen?
Madam Chair and Representative Anderson, we did issue a report on the emerging farmer, and I believe the committee, or it's available to the committee. We can make sure that you all have that. And so, and it was just, well, it hasn't been out very long, so we'll make sure we get that. I just tell you, Commissioner Bailey, he reads these over here, and he leads that Emerging Farmers Working Group. It's been going really well. Just a reminder, you know, just was at the Fruit and Vegetable Growers Conference, and, you know, the amount of Hmong, Somali, Native American, Latino farmers that we have in our state that are growing, getting into farming. I can see it even in my own area with the land that they're purchasing. Veterans were the other ones that I met with at the Fruit and Vegetable Growers Conference of veterans that are getting into farming. All the important things that are working through the Emerging Farmer Working Group, but we'll make sure you have that report.
Representative Cha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Page 22, Grain Indemnity Fund. Can you expand on the success and failures of similar programs in other states in regards to, you know, grain indemnity funds?
Deputy Commissioner?
Chair Vang, Representative Cha, thank you so much for the question. We would also love to come back and sort of dive a little deeper into this because it is such an important issue, and our staff has done incredible work researching the effects of the indemnity programs across several states. A lot of them do, each of them does them a little differently, so I think that's an important piece we can talk about too. So there's different levels, I would say, of usage and how a producer can sort of engage in the fund in general and where the funding piece and the mechanism comes from. So we'd be happy to kind of dive into that a little bit. But certainly we've heard from other states that it's been a really good usage or way to protect producers in these instances in a way that our current system does not provide.
Representative Cha?
No further questions, thank you.
Representative Hansen?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner Bobble and Commissioner Petersen. On the fertilizer fee, if you could get us, you know, the graph of what the tonnage has been of sales over the past several years, just so we can see the trend on sales, and also if we could get that on pesticides. You know, I think one thing we always forget about with fertilizers is that they are derived from fossil fuels with the Haber-Bosch model of transferring that into nitrogen. And so we have greenhouse gas emissions involved throughout the production line of that. And then we have the externalized cost of groundwater and surface water contamination that we usually don't account for in the cost benefit of production. So if we could get those, and then maybe even on the ACRA side of it, I'm assuming that the cost of cleanup per incident is also increasing as the contractors get their availability and ability for cleaning up, and the science involved in making sure that we're chasing down all of the contamination is going to increase in cost as well. So I know you may not have that with us, but if you could provide that information, that would be great.
Commissioner Petersen?
Madam Chair, Representative Hansen, yes, we can. And you know, and I think too, we've been looking at fertilizer, pesticide, you know, I think things are changing some, you know, especially with variable rate applications, and farmers, you know, in some cases may be using less or different amounts too, which I think is really exciting and interesting technology, because I think as we look at, you know, as commissioner run into people who think that farmers just blanket apply everything. I always remind people it costs money and it's very expensive. And so it's exciting to see the technology that farmers are using on that. We'll be glad to provide that to the committee. And I also believe there's an ACRA legislative report too that would be available for the committee.
Okay. Representative Jacob?
So in my area down in Winona County, our Lake Winona just inundated with phosphorus use and use of chemicals on, or fertilizers on area lawns. And so I'm wondering, why are we only focused on damage potentially done by farmers, and that the amount of fertilizers that go onto lawns is largely unregulated? And is there either a solution or a potential fee that would be put there on those products that are sold?
Deputy Commissioner?
Madam Chair, Representative Jacob, thank you so much for the question. I am looking right at Josh. I know that he can answer this question because it is one that comes up quite often. Sorry, Josh.
Director Josh?
Yeah, you guys will just-
Sit in that chair over there.
Madam Chair. Representative, when we look at the total tonnage, currently, in my memory serves me correctly, there's about 3 million tons of fertilizer sold in the state of Minnesota each year. When we look at the volume that is sold for non-agricultural use, it represents a relatively small proportion. It's right around 5% of the total tonnage volume that is used in non-agricultural production. But that doesn't mean that, and if specifically for phosphorus, we have a phosphorus fertilizer law within the state of Minnesota that precludes the use of phosphorus fertilizer on turf production. There's been research that's come out of the University of Minnesota that says that turf does not respond to phosphorus fertilization within the state of Minnesota.
Representative Jacob?
Well, 5% is not insignificant.
Right, Chris?
That's all, thank you.
All right. Representative Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to that, just to be clear, Director Stamper, phosphorus fertilizer in lawns has been banned by the legislature since, I believe, 2005. We banned it. It's not in there.
All right. Representative Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question in regards to page 27, the expanded international trade support page here. Really curious to hear more about the demand for services, expanding the international trade support. I think you mentioned that nearby states have 4 to 5 staff employed working on that, and I'd really like to hear more about the state of Minnesota and how that, work will be evolving.
Deputy Commissioner?
Chair Vang, Representative Ream, thank you so much for the question. We would love any opportunity to talk about the work that our international trade team does. Certainly some of the things that we work on, and again, we're happy to dive into this a little bit more at another hearing if you'd like. But some of the things we do, we work closely with a national organization, or really it's a federally funded organization called Food Export Midwest. And that really aims to work with producers and companies, both mostly international but also domestic, who use U.S. products. So we work closely with them. We work closely with some of the global groups like U.S. Grains Council or U.S. Meat Export to take a look at what opportunities exist on a global stage. So, for example, we do trade missions that we think really long and hard about targeted markets that there might be opportunities. So we just created an in-market representative for the nation of Taiwan. That was a country that had a significant interest in Minnesota commodities, specifically because of the quality that comes out of Minnesota and because of the reputation we have for building relationships. In the past, several of us and past commissioners have gone to Taiwan. The face-to-face relationship's incredibly important for a lot of the folks that we work with across the globe. So being there and asking them and having them meet us face-to-face, but also asking them to come here is really important in building, again, those relationships relationships to solidify some of those purchases. There's also some emerging markets around the world that maybe other states have not looked at that we're really trying to get in early for them to meet and see and understand the opportunities that exist in Minnesota. North Africa is one that we're thinking of and working on significantly, particularly with some opportunities out of the St. Lawrence Seaway and a new elevator at the Port of Duluth. So we're constantly kind of doing market analysis. We're talking with other states to see what they're doing, to see, again, if we can find some harmonization with their work, but also ways that maybe we could have an edge. So I think additional capacity would really help for us to be able to maximize some of those opportunities that have gone untouched thus far.
Representative Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, if you'll indulge me a little bit, many years ago, I lived in Japan, and my Japanese friends wanted me to try this apple. They love their fancy food, so they told me if you opened it up, it looked like there was honey in there. So it turned out it was the Honeycrisp apple, and full circle, I live in Carver County, where the Honeycrisp apple was produced, first made by the U of M. So I do think there is a market internationally for our wonderful foods, including our apples, and thank you for that information.
Representative Jacob? Do you, okay. Any further questions from the Representative Anderson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a clarification, and hopefully Mr. Stamper does not have to come up again. But the percentages he gave us, and I think too that the non-ag fertilizers also pay maybe a slightly higher fee per ton than ag does, but is it safe to say that agriculture farmers pay close to 95% of the revenue coming into that fund, that cleanup fund?
Director Josh?
Madam Chair, Representative Anderson, that would be an accurate statement.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Anderson? Okay. Right. Any further questions from members of the committee? All right, seeing none. Well, that is all that we have for today's agenda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Petersen and Deputy Commissioner Wobble, for your time and your testimony. I know that was a lot of information, so I always appreciate you two coming here to answer our questions too. So thank you very much for that. With that, our next meeting is Thursday, January 26, 2023. We will have an overview from the Plant Protection Department and have 3 bills to hear. So be looking forward to that. And with that, meeting is adjourned.